we all have to kind of deal with is the marketing aspect of it.
Ew.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, kind of like, and I think like one of the biggest things we can talk about is kind of what you talked about before, was basically kind of the role of E3 in the game's development. Because E3 is essentially a big marketing thing. It's kind of positioned as a place for game developers to kind of build hype and do marketing. And I mean, like, it's cool to hate on marketing, but the reality is, and I've seen this firsthand, people aren't going to buy a game they don't know about.
Or watch a podcast.
Right. I mean, whatever. Like, people are not going to consume and participate in something if they don't know about it. And marketing's hard, especially on the indie level. Like, like, it's one thing to kind of be an EA and be able to kind of like splash misleading videos of your upcoming game when things are still basically changing on a day-to-day basis.
No Man's Skies.
or Anthem.
Oh, that thing we're talking about.
Yeah, I think we're talking about, right? I mean, because basically, but that was kind of like one of the problems they talked about. Is like like some of the stuff showed at EA was not, or E3, sorry, was not basically stuff that was going to make it in the game.
Yeah, I watched the E3 trailer because it was embedded on the article. For the first time, I'd never seen it before. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like to play that game.
Right, that game looks fun. Where can I get that one?
Yeah. Because I was watching, and then because one of my streaming buddies plays Anthem, and I was watching him play it, and I was thinking back to watching him play. I'm like, that's not the game. These two games are not the same.
Right. And I think it's potentially kind of it's potentially interesting that you have these looking at how companies market things, because I think like one of the problems you run into with Anthem was that because it didn't have that focus, because it didn't have the design focus, it was really hard to market it properly. And and because things were changing, like some of the marketing ended up being not very realistic, and you get that to a bit, like and I'm not gonna say like like every time you see like a bit of marketing that doesn't match the game, that it's this was just something that had to get cut or whatnot. Like I think it was Penny Arcade tried to coin the word bullshot, which was a screenshot that was basically completely made up. I remember like this happening when I was working at 3DO. They included this basically like a concept where they had a spell effect that was absolutely not in the game. It was like a Heroes of the Might Magic game. They had like this giant like bold lightning bolt, which the lightning bolt spell looked nothing like that. So it was obviously they kind of took a mocked up screenshot and just like some artist like literally just drew a giant ass lightning bolt into it, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna use this for the back of the box.
Oh my god, that was box art.
I mean, yeah, back in the day, back when games came in boxes, kids.
What?
Yeah. But I mean, you kind of see that these days, where like they'll post concept art. I mean, and to be fair, like like a lot of times the concept art will get people very excited about the game, but sometimes like speaking of Final Fantasy, like a lot of times like don't get me wrong, I love the 2D sprites for Final Fantasy, but a lot of times you'd see the concept art and you'd be like, oh, that's beautiful. Man, that's not. I can see how that kind of fits, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, Dragon Quest was notorious for that too. Right. They'd have beautiful like concept art, anime characters, and
right.
Then you get sprites, which beautiful, but not
right
the same thing.
Not quite the same thing, yeah. And so yeah, and so again, like I think there's a lot of tight tensions, in marketing between, kind of like, putting the best foot forward and, like, kind of, hiding flaws, or even just like, and like I said, I think in Anthem's case, a lot of it was just they really didn't know what was going, like, they really didn't know what was going on. So
Yeah, where the article was saying that the E3 demo was the first time a lot of the developers saw what kind of game they were making, which I don't quite get that sentiment.
Well, I think a lot of it was, because they really didn't have a good vision.
Right.
And so, again, when you're down in the trenches, sometimes you miss the bigger picture. I think
Okay.
they have someone inspiring the people in the trenches with that bigger picture. And so when they finally saw the trailer put together, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how that game. I'm sure, like, it wasn't quite as dire as some people want to make it sound like, but I think there probably is some element of truth to that, where people were kind of like, oh, I guess that's the type of game we're making. Like, or like, they thought they might be, something related, and they're like, oh no, I guess we're going this direction. Something that should have been communicated by the management and whatnot. But again, like marketing are people too, or so the rumor goes, and they can only do. They basically can only work, legitimately work with the information they're given. If they're given kind of confused information, well then it's probably no surprise that the marketing is going to feel confused as well.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because they were saying, because the article said that a lot of the developers, when they, I guess that was post E3, was their Austin department. So like they wouldn't have had the direct communication with the head developers.
Right. Yeah. That's basically usually what's called siloing. I was gonna get that in the
Right. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
I mean, that's fine. But the other interesting thing that they talk about, they kind of brush upon, but I think it's kind of it's interesting to talk about in terms in more concrete terms, is like, kind of the rise of like how not necessarily the rise, but like how important reviews and Metacritic scores are to games anymore. Like, this is kind of used as the objective nature of of how well a team does. Because so you basically kind of have, like, you have the ultimate judgment: how much money does it make? But the idea being, like, I think a lot of times, like, Metacritic and review scores are kind of seen as a more like an objective way. Like, if you have something that doesn't perform very well, but basically got like really high reviews, well, it just didn't find its audience, or maybe the marketing wasn't good, or whatever. You can kind of like, kind of nod and say, okay,
it gives you a quantification.
Right. But if you have something that does poorly, but then has like a low review scores, well, then you can go like, well, if the game had been better, it probably would have sold better. Therefore, we're gonna blame, like, the developer's gonna be held responsible for the lack of success here.
Like Mighty Number 9.
Right.
Which speaking of games that comes in boxes,
that
one came in a coffin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the pine box. As an aside, I saw my I actually have that on my wish list on Steam, and I saw that I got the notification, hey, this is on sale. I'm like, 70% off though. I don't know if that's worth it.
I was actually tempted to gift that to you, like, for Christmas.
Oh yeah.
I was so tempted, but I thought it would be a really mean joke.
And then I stopped talking to you. But yeah, I like. But yeah, I like, they even talked about, having mock review scores, like, where they bring in external reviewers to basically look at builds of a game and basically kind of like anticipate what the reviews are going to be like.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Right, right. I mean, well, again, like this is because like reviews are all important here, like like, and so in what they said in the article is like they were expecting Metacritic basically kind of like takes every review that they can find from major reputable sources, and they basically kind of like say okay, they basically send in a score 0 through 100, and then basically then they take kind of the I don't know if it's a pure average or what, and so like they anticipated they would get like a 77 Metacritic score, which is basically like you can kind of think of it like
average.
Yeah, a bit. Well, I mean, like this is below average.
Okay.
Because of grade inflation, review inflation is also a thing.
Of course.
And so the idea being that people, basically people who, like, a company like BioWare has a much bigger, has a reputation, so they're going to make better games. The idea being that essentially with the better reputation, they're going to generally have higher games. So they basically they said that, like I said, they said that they anticipate they were going to get 77, which is pretty low for a BioWare game, since they tend to kind of build love and they really kind of focus on being premier games. But then the kind of the flip side of that was that they basically didn't even get that high. Like the final score is something like 55,
Yeah.
which was like abysmal. I mean, like even if you look at like a grading scale, even ignoring the fact, like I said, that you have kind of a review inflation, and especially like the games from large studios and premier studios like BioWare tend to get a lot tend to get a lot more softball treatment in general than like smaller companies or even mid-range companies, and so that was just like really kind of a terrible a terrible thing for them to face, because it basically, like I said, objectively, and the developer said, I mean, again, of course, like this is a one-sided article, but the developer said, oh, they read reviews and all the bad things were like a laundry list of the stuff that they were complaining about. And it's one of those things like, yes, you were complaining about it, but again, no software is completely bug-free. You have what are called triage lists, where you kind of scale things, and there's always going to be some bugs in pretty much any software, especially something that doesn't rely on something that doesn't that people aren't relying on for health and well-being. Games as entertainment are not going to be scrutinized as hard.
Right. That does remind me of the Metacritic score for Breath of the Wild. I think I talked about this on.
Oh yeah. Whereas like one person kind of like lowered the score just enough to dent it like 0.1%.
Yeah, it changed it from being a 98 to a 97, and it was Jim Sterling.
Right.
Of all people. So he actually got death threats over that, which I thought was perfect for him. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, this is one of the problems you run into is like, and this is kind of reflected in reviews as well, where a lot of times people will just there's the default assumption that a game by BioWare is going to be good, or a game by whatever whoever the darling is right now. Blizzard, whoever, like whatever kind of big name or very popular company you want to talk about, where it's going to be good by default, because that's just the expectation.
Basically everybody except EA.
even EA. I mean, like, you're gonna have,
Well,
you're gonna have, like, people are gonna kind of act like the latest Madden or FIFA or whatever sports game.
Well, Apex Legends was an EA game, and everyone's going crazy about that.
Which one?
Apex Legends.
Oh.
That's that new battle royale game.
Right.
Yeah, that's an EA game.
I mean, EA sometimes makes good games. I mean, I've heard that like they've had some success in the past based on people actually buying and liking their games. In theory.
What? How?
Yeah, I know.
How does that work?
What is this crazy talk?
People bought Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Yes, and then they were immediately pissed off because of the loot box.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about that argument is that everyone, badmouths it, but you still bought it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that's kind of a case of they bought it expecting. They bought it expecting kind of one thing, and then felt like they were given another.
Hey. Oh my God, these sharks! Okay, sorry. I'm having a moment. I hate the submersible parts of this level.
Yeah. So since it's a nightmare mission, we can't get any actual energy for our Arcwings. So.
Oh my God. Oh, that's right. I'm not gonna be able to pull it off. Res me.
Fine, I guess. Get on my shoulders, I carry you.
Me. I lost track of where we were.
We're talking about marketing, looking at
Oh yeah, the reviews.
Right, reviews, and this is not a new thing though. Even before there was kind of the concept of Metacritic, and before Metacritic was the thing and whatnot. Like, I remember when I worked at 3DO, like some of the managers talking about reviews for the games. And like essentially being kind of told flat out, look, reviews don't matter. What really matters is previews. If you get a good preview, then basically people are more likely to buy your game. Because I mean, essentially, like game magazines wanted to kind of be the first to have a review, so they would often basically, they wanted to kind of early access to things.
Mm-hmm. Review copies.
And so they could, especially in printed magazines with long lead times, so they could basically publish the review, around the time that the game came out.
Right.
So people, if the new Zelda game is coming out and you want to know what the new Zelda game is like, well, we're reading Nintendo Power, which is basically just a mouthpiece for Nintendo. But whatever game, kind of know what this latest game was like.
Nintendo Power is gospel.
You would go to the you'd go to the magazine that was going to talk about that, and if they had a good review, if they had a good opinion of it, because like for example, because it was they had a good opinion of it because they basically had a really good preview for it, well then that's potentially going to result in more sales. Mm-hmm. The problem of course becomes when basically then the implication here was that if you can manipulate the previews to be positive,
the enemy is broken. Well done.
then basically you can basically sell games even if the game is not is something that is not going to necessarily stand the test of time.
Yeah, that actually makes me think of Halo 2.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the wee days of Bungie Halo.
Mm-hmm.
The demo, the preview demo for Halo 2 that they released was a level that got cut out of Halo 2, and it's a really fun level. but it did not exist at all in the final game
Right.
product. So
Right.
and like none of the actual levels in the game were as fun as that demo level.
Really?
Yeah. Or in my opinion, yeah. Because it was all urban city fighting, and you had jeeps going down highways, and you had scripted events of like the alien aircrafts coming over you, and you had to pull out the gun and shoot the aircraft down, and they go down and big explosions in the distance, and it was a great scripted fight. Nothing like that in Halo 2.
Right.
It's actually kind of a
Like
disappointment.
obviously it was very and I mean but you can kind of manage that imagine that as you can kind of imagine that as from a reviewer's point of view, like if you were given that level and said this is going to be representative of the game, you'd be like, oh man, this is great, it's got this really great story, it's all this great stuff and whatnot, but of course then the reality kind of settles in that actually no, it's not going to be in the final game.
Right, exactly.
And like reviews are kind of like a little slight tangent here, but like reviews are a really interesting thing, because like I think one of the problems you run into with reviews is kind of twofold. Like one, there's just not enough time to really kind of do a very good review of a lot of games. Like a lot of genres traditionally have gotten like really terrible, really kind of gotten treated very poorly. Like JRPG, like I said, especially if you're looking at a print magazine, even like a magazine, or even like a review site today, like Kotaku, or a news site and whatnot. Like it's unlikely, if you have a game with 80 hours, like a JRPG with 80 hours of gameplay, it is exceedingly unlikely that the reviewer played all 80 hours of the game in order to kind of really get a good idea for what it's like. The more likely reality was that like they were kind of given a couple of slices, pre-made party. Okay, we're gonna take you to the first boss. People go, the party should be about level 15, so we're gonna give you level 17 characters, type of thing. And so it's like, oh yeah, no, the boss fights are really engaging. And it's like, well, okay, if you grind levels a little bit more than the game gives you automatically, yeah, these boss fights are great.
Thank you for the follow. We gotta follow.
We gotta follow. Somebody actually listening to us and likes us enough to follow?
I know.
What? I like the and I think it's kind of the same thing. Like when you talk about a game as a service, like I heard a lot of people kind of say, like one of the big problems that people talk about with one of the things that people talk about with Anthem was that like a lot of the individual elements of the game were not too bad.
Yeah, people said the shooting was pretty fun, and the flying was pretty fun.
Right. But then there was a oh, we're doing a Kuba farm?
It is a nightmare mission.
Ooh.
So Kuba survival. So we can just kind of camp for 5 minutes and then.
Right.
I mean, we can try to do a Kuba. Without a Necros, it would be kind of stressful.
Yeah. I mean, we might as well farm a little bit over here while we're here.
Sure.
But yeah, and so like like games as a service, like a lot of times you can have one particular impression of the game, good or bad. Like, oh, a lot of the mechanics are fun, but then it falls down, or well, this is not very much fun, but it's going to get patched later.
Yeah. When I was reading the description of what they were trying to aim for once they settled into like the loot and shoot style, the description matched Firefall. where there was going to be like weather events and big monsters will come out of it and you know this and that, and I'm just like, that's literally Firefall.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Kind of like, you know, a game that kind of
My warframe.
that unfortunately didn't fare very well, but
Exactly. I thought it was actually a little hilarious.
right. And but like I said, kind of in general, like games as a service or MMOs are kind of suffer kind of at the hands of reviews, because a lot of times, you know, like, you know, again, there's not enough time to actually play the game. You know, things change quite rapidly.
Commencing coup harvest.
Things change quite rapidly. And you know, like so it's really hard to tell whether or not this a game is basically going to whether the review is basically accurate, you know, for a game, you know, when the game is expected to be around for, you know, in a duration measured in years rather than months for a lot of games. And when you have a game that's basically, because I mean that was kind of what they were banking on in for Anthem, was that they would be able to not only, like, you know, basically, you know, as long as they got kind of a decent game, got enough initial sales, then they can basically work on the game.
I've delivered another life
And
support
do
capsule.
a Diablo fix for it.
Right. As the article said, yeah, like exactly, like Diablo 3 being kind of the example here, where they were able to kind of save the game, you know, afterwards.
Which is a little bit of a sad state to go, oh no, we'll just do this like Diablo 3.
Right. We'll pull Diablo 3 here. Ooh, that's a tough road to haul, I guess.
That's not a very high bar you're shooting for there.
Right.
I mean, I love Diablo 3 now, but
Right.
ooh, if it could have started the way that it is now, that would have been better. Ooh,
What the hell is that?
Prepare for
Kuva
life
Guardian?
support.
No. I don't see anything nearby, and it explains why I just got it's only one shot. Guess I'll die.
I don't even see you.
I was up top.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Guess I'll just die. Die
I-
for it.
It's fine. I guess you're not. You're not important.
Wow. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye. Have fun, everybody. I need to listen to the program, try to read my notes and figure out what the fuck I was going to talk about. Nah, and so, like, the whole review thing, and, you know, I've kind of before, like, you know, like, and we kind of hinted about it before, like, you know, when companies are kind of hooked on, you know,
To a successful start.
when people are kind of, when companies, you know, when the review are reliant on, you know, the developers for news and whatnot, and developers and publishers for news, you're not going to get an unbiased source. You're not going to get, you know, stuff that's kind of necessarily going to be accurate in the way that, you know, you might expect an objective source to be.
Are you saying that Fox News isn't fair and balanced?
Seeing as how they want access to the to politicians, and if they kind of bank on that, especially in the current administration. Yeah, I think there's some parallels here we can draw.
I'm sorry, I've been sitting on that one since you started talking about journalism.
Anyway, but yeah, I think that, you know, like
Extract?
I've delivered another life
Yeah.
support capsule.
trying to work my way toward extraction.